when Arya Stark leaped out of the shadows and drove her dagger into the Night King's chest, ending the long night in one shocking instant, the world of Game of Thrones erupted in debate. Some fans cheered, some gasped, and many sat in stunned silence wondering whether this was really how it was all meant to end. Should Arya have been the one to kill the Night King, or should it have been Jon Snow, the man whose destiny seemed intertwined with that ancient enemy from the very beginning? It is one of the most polarizing questions in the entire series, not because Arya's moment lacked power, but because it rewrote years of narrative expectation in a single, breathtaking stab. From the start, Jon Snow's story was a perfect mirror to the Night King's rise. Jon was the outsider, the bastard of Winterfell, the one who always stood apart. He joined the Night's Watch, faced the horrors beyond the wall, and grew from a naive boy into a hardened leader. Every major thread of his journey seemed to pull him toward one ultimate confrontation: man against death, the living against the dead. He fought the White Walkers at Hardhome, stood against them again at the Battle of the Bastards, and even died and returned to life himself. The symmetry was poetic. Jon Snow, the man who came back from death, facing the embodiment of death itself. It seemed inevitable that one day his sword would clash with the Night King's ice. Arya's journey, on the other hand, was very different. She was never about destiny. She was about survival, identity, and transformation. From the moment she left Winterfell, she carved her own path through a world that wanted to destroy her. She trained with the Faceless Men, learned the art of stealth and death, and turned herself into a weapon. Where Jon represented light, duty, and sacrifice, Arya embodied shadow, cunning, and vengeance. The two siblings represented opposite sides of the same Stark coin: honor and instinct, heart and blade. So when Arya killed the Night King, it was shocking but not meaningless. In a symbolic sense, it fit her evolution. She had been shaped by death from the beginning. Death took her father, her friends, her innocence, and in return, she made death her teacher. She had already spoken to the god of death countless times, repeating that haunting mantra: "What do we say to the god of death not today?" So when she lunged at the Night King, the ultimate god of death, it was as if all of her trauma, her rage, and her training had been leading to that one moment. It was poetry of a different kind. But the reason this debate refused to die is because of how the show itself built expectations. For 8 seasons, Game of Thrones layered myth upon myth around the Night King. His creation by the Children of the Forest, his centuries of silence, his growing army, everything about him was presented as an unstoppable force that only one person seemed capable of stopping: Jon Snow. The entire arc of Jon's resurrection felt like the fulfillment of prophecy. He was the man brought back from death to fight death. He was the embodiment of Azor Ahai, the hero promised in ancient lore who would wield a burning sword against the darkness. Fans expected that prophecy to come full circle at Winterfell. Instead, Jon spent much of the final battle struggling to reach the Night King and failing, his every attempt blocked by undead dragons and endless chaos. Arya's sudden intervention, while spectacular, made Jon feel almost irrelevant to the event he had been built up to face. For many, it felt like a betrayal of his arc, not because Arya's moment wasn't earned, but because his wasn't fulfilled. It was as though the show handed off destiny to someone who had never been framed as its chosen vessel. And yet, if we look deeper, perhaps that was the point. Game of Thrones was never about fulfilling destiny. It was about subverting it. From Ned Stark's execution to Robb's death at the Red Wedding, the series consistently reminded viewers that this world doesn't care about prophecy or what's supposed to happen. Heroes die early, villains win, oaths are broken, so maybe the Night King's death was never meant to be a grand duel between legends. Maybe it was meant to show that even gods can fall to mortals who move unseen. Arya's victory also carried an emotional resonance that went beyond prophecy. Her strike wasn't just about destiny, it was about vengeance and family. When she killed the Night King, she wasn't just saving humanity, she was protecting her brother, her sister, her home. That raw, personal connection made her moment powerful in a very human way. Jon would have fought the Night King because it was his duty. Arya killed him because it was personal. It was love and hate and memory in a single motion. Still, It's hard not to feel that Jon's story lost something in the process. He spent years learning the truth about the White Walkers, uniting wildlings and men, and dying for a cause greater than himself. To see him sidelined during the final confrontation, reduced to shouting at a dragon while Arya struck the final blow, was jarring. It almost felt as though two different stories collided and only one could finish. There's also the matter of the Night King's symbolism. He was more than a villain, he was death itself, the ultimate reflection of the cycle of violence that defined the world. His battle with Jon would have been poetic because both were bound by death. Jon's return from the grave gave him a connection to that supernatural force that no one else shared. Having him end the Night King's reign could have completed that arc, bringing balance between life and death, sacrifice and salvation. But maybe Arya's role wasn't meant to erase Jon's destiny, but to redefine it. Jon's purpose might not have been to destroy the darkness himself, but to make space for others to do it. He united people, inspired loyalty, and led them to that moment. He was the one who showed that courage could exist even in the face of death. Without Jon, Arya never would have had the chance to strike. His story wasn't about victory, it was about faith. At the same time, Arya's act was the perfect culmination of her own arc. She went from a helpless girl to a faceless assassin, from vengeance-driven killer to savior of mankind. Her leap at the Night King symbolized everything she had become: fearless, unpredictable, and unstoppable. The move itself was brilliant, silent, deadly, unexpected. It wasn't the kind of ending the audience expected, but it was the kind of ending that Arya would create. So, who should have killed the Night King? The honest answer is that both could have, and both had strong reasons. Jon killing him would have been the fulfillment of a prophecy, a clean and poetic resolution that rewarded years of setup. Arya killing him was chaos embodied, shocking, subversive, and perfectly in line with the show's love for breaking rules. In truth, maybe the best choice depends on what you value more: destiny or surprise, symmetry or shock. In the end, Arya's kill was as divisive as it was thrilling. It left fans arguing, theorizing, and debating long after the credits rolled, and maybe that's the greatest legacy a moment in Game of Thrones can have. Whether you believe Jon deserved that moment or that Arya earned it, one thing is certain. The Night King's death wasn't just the end of a war, it was the collision of every theme that defined the series: fate, family, and the fragile line between life and death. And in true Game of Thrones fashion, it reminded us that no one, not even destiny itself, is safe from being cut down by a girl with a blade and a whisper on her lips. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, and share. And as always, thank you for watching. And peace.